Today we're going to learn some in Tafrei Shai analysis of Gimel, which is going to talk about the obligation of women in menorah, children, also someone who's deaf potentially, or someone mentally challenged. Number one, are they obligated? Number two, why yes, why no? Number three, could they fulfill the obligation of someone else? Number four, should they be lighting? Number five, is there a difference if they're married, not? And number six, various miscellaneous matters that are going to come up on this simon.
Depending if they're Sephardi or
Yeah, we're gonna have to see all differences. So the tour opens up this discussion, this topic, these topics, and says that someone who's deaf, mentally challenged, which that has to be categorized in and of itself, katan, a minor, that needs to be categorized. What constitutes a minor? What age? Let's say he reached the age of education, or she. They are not allowed to light the menorah. Says the Torah. Now, why can't a deaf person light the menorah? I understand the katan la bar chiyuvu, he's not obligated in mitzvahs, he or she, not by mitzvah. I understand that. I understand someone mentally challenged because mentally the individual isn't there and doesn't comprehend the full severity of the situation. But why can't someone deaf light the menorah? Why is he not allowed to? Now, before we come to an answer to that question, we have to ask, what on earth is this doing in Simon Tafrei Shai and Hey, which is learning, which we've been learning about for the last week or so, Hadlaka is the mitzvah, Hanacha is the mitzvah, the lighting is the mitzvah, the placing is the mitzvah, we hold the lighting is the mitzvah. What on earth is this doing in it? Very simple. If we would have held Hanacha is the mitzvah, that placing the menorah down is the mitzvah, so what are you talking about? Whoever you want can light it. Even someone who isn't Jewish can light it. All you got to do is pick the thing up, put it down. Not a mitzvah. But then, rather, since we hold hadlaka is a mitzvah, since we hold that the lighting itself is the mitzvah, consequently, therefore, thus, they're not allowed to light it. Because the lighting, it's all about the actual licht, the lighting. Comes the Torah in the continuation, it says about Isha Madlekes, Shafi Aiza ben Neis v'chayeves ba. Conversely, a woman is allowed to light the menorah because she was even in the miracle and she's obligated in it. So we see from the Torah, whose the truth of the matter is coming from Gemara and Shabbos, which we already learned, and we'll just pull off on the screen over here for the sake of clarity. We have the statement of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi over here. Isha avadem madliko dama Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi noshim chayovos ben erchaniko v'shafei naibasanis.
Why doesn't the Torah go ahead and use that stronger language of Isha Matlaka?
She's saying she lights.
Why not say Isha Chai?
I mean, the Gemara says vade Isha madlika.
And here it's like Isha Matlaka.
Isha vade madlika, same thing. She lights. We'll see Shulchan Aruch if there's a difference in the language, but it's clear that she lights. Now, maybe the Torah, on some level, is alluding to. Wait a second. Let's say she's married. Maybe she should fulfill an obligation with someone else. By the way, why would there be a difference? Come back to that also between Shabbos, Yontif versus Chanukah. If she has a full obligation on Chanukah, why wouldn't she light? Very married women don't light. What about single women? I have to see there's a difference. Girls, what would be a difference? If you think that we're going to address all of the 15 questions that we asked in the last 3 minutes, think again. We're not going to have time to get to all of them today.
Okay, today.
What do you, come on. You think these questions I just came up with, these questions that you could stump anyone with that they don't know the answer to? This requires hours and hours of research, R&D. This is the real R&D that matters in life. Shafi and Ayah, what nace were they part of? The Shlomo Yitzchaki over here, other words, otherwise known as Rashi, in short. Sheshagozru Yevonim al kol besulos hanasuis libo latalsuf techilav al didei yishud nas hanis. The Greeks, they made a decree that any unmarried woman who was engaged and about to be married would have to have relations with one of the Greek officials, the general, first, and through a woman the miracle happened. That is Yehudis, the daughter of Yochanan. So, in other words, as we will learn, the reason why they're obligated in menorah seems to be two reasons. Number one, they were included in the decree, and number two, they were included in the Yeshua, the salvation. The way that this is described is there was a military shift of momentum after this salvation occurred, because Yehudis basically, it's the Ran goes into it, others go into it. If you research the history of Hanukkah properly, Yehudis got the general basically gave him cheese. He has a name. It's a tricky name. My wife knows the name. She has a name, and Yehudis fed him cheese. And then when you get cheese, you get thirsty. So she fed him a lot of alcohol. And then when you get drunk, you get sleepy. So he fell asleep. Yehuda said, perfect opportunity. Chopped his head off. And that caused a big shift of momentum. And that, by the way, is why women are obligated in the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah. Now, the
But why would I
obvious
want?
question
Why would I
is,
want to eat? Why would I want to have a milchik suda then?
oh, what about milchuks? So also that's cheese. That's what comes from
Yeah,
having
why would I
milchuks.
want to
It's
have
dairy.
it? If I want it, it's gonna make me thirsty and tired. Then
Yeah, it makes you thirsty, but you could drink good old-fashioned water. But hold on for a minute. We
why
have to
didn't you
ask
drink?
ourselves the question.
So why
Wait a
didn't you just
second.
drink water?
Why do we need to come on to Sha'afin Haibos or Anes, that women were included in the miracle? Why can't we just say they're obligated? Very simple. Chanukah would be no different than other mitzvahs aser she'azman grama. We know from the first Perek Kedushin, kol mitzvahs aser she'azman grama nashim b'turas. Women are exempt from time-bound mitzvahs. Therefore, had it not been for this idea of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Shafin that they're in the miracle, they're included in the miracle. So then what? So then they wouldn't be obligated. One of my chavrusas said that one of his Rebbe gave him a list of questions to address regarding Hilchas Chanukah. So he said that his Rebbe opens up a random page of the Mishnah Berurah and then comes up with the question and writes it down, and that's it. One of the questions was, what is the connection between, the question was something along the lines of, what is the connection between Chanukah and the Dalit Kossos? We have 4 cups of wine on Pesach. So I said, what do you mean? You have a statement of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who says, just like on Pesach, we know that they're obligated in the Dalit Kossos, the Gemara Psachim, Kuf Chesem and Beis, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says same statement, that women are included in the miracle on Pesach, and in the decree, and also part of it in numerous ways. So just like on Pesach, they're obligated. So too over here, and if it had not been for that statement of Rabbi Shimon Levi, we wouldn't have known that they're obligated, because it's time bound. Same idea. Matzah, we already know they're obligated from a different connector. That's on Mem Gimel and Psachim. If you're not allowed to eat chametz, you have to eat matzah. Kol shishnu v'azol chametz shishnu b'kum achilas matzah v'anina shalav yishnu b'azol chametz shishnu b'kum achilas matzah. The Gemara says, since women are allowed to eat chametz, they're obligated matzah. So apparently that was the wrong answer. The right answer was, there's a connection, because just like we know the Rashbam in the beginning of Arvei Psachim over there in Psachim on Sadi Tesam at Aleph says that you have to sell your clothing if you can't afford the 4 cups of wine. You even have to sell your clothing in order to be able to afford them. So too on Chanukah, if you can't afford a menorah and oil or candles, you have to sell your clothing. So I told him, ask your Rebbe, wait a second. But the Gemara in Shabbos says on Chav Gimel Amud Beis, and we hold this way in Torah Shulchan Aruch Tafresh Ayin Ches over there, that one of those later Siman Hilchos Chanukah, that if you could only afford one, the Shabbos Ner Shabbos comes before Ner Chanukah. So wait a second, you're telling me that you have to sell your clothing in order to be able to afford menorah, but once you sell your clothing, now you have to purchase the Hanukkah candles. The Shabbos candles. You have to purchase the Hanukkah candles. But wait, the halacha isn't that you have to sell your clothing to purchase the Shabbos candles. So now maybe you could buy your clothing back.
Huge.
Yeah, I know. We learned this last year. We learned this last year's Chazar. Furthermore, the halacha is just if you can't afford food on the table or challah for Shabbos and menorah, the halacha is you get the food for Shabbos. But wait, you don't have to sell your clothing for food for Shabbos.
What's the minimum amount of clothing? What's the minimum amount of clothing you need to light a menorah?
Minimum amount what?
What's the least amount of clothing that you have to have in order to light the menorah?
I mean, you need basically an undershirt and you need something to cover your, you
An
know.
undershirt. Oh,
Yeah, but it's talking about extra. It's extra. But
I was saying that what's considered
the
extra.
idea is the question is, was there anyone in the history of our religion who actually sold their clothing to
Mm,
purchase menorah or 4 cups of wine? I wonder if anyone actually had to do it. I mean, there's been a lot of poverty
Probably,
historically.
I'm sure. I'm
I
sure.
wonder if people actually did it and what they would wear practically. And I guess
Yeah,
you
that's
just
a
wear undergarments or something. You can't
you
sell
were
all your
you're
clothing so you're not dressed. That wouldn't be.
Gotta cover the air.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to cover the makom erva. You got to, yeah,
But you have to have you have to have an undershirt and like underwear, and you have to have underwear. But I'm saying you have to have
yeah,
a
yeah.
t-shirt. You have to have a t-shirt.
Panim, yeah, preferable with the davening and everything. But the
Send a rough idea.
the Beis Yosef over here, other words known as the House of Joseph, he comes along. You come into the Shizok, the House of Joseph. They'll be like, who is this guy? Uh, the uh, the Beis Yosef over here, he basically wraps up the simon by quoting a fundamental shita of the Itter. It's an important opinion of the Itter. The Itter state the im hegil chinuch mutter v'hakol tali b'minhag. The Itter says, wait a second. If a child reached the age of education, reached the age of chinuch, so then in fact it would be permissible for him to light the menorah, and everything depends on a minhag as is discussed in the Yerushalmi and Maseches Megillah. So therefore, we see from over here that when the Gemara, when it's discussed that a katan, a minor, is not allowed to light, however, if the minor reached the age of education, then it will be permissible for him to light. That's according to the Itter. The question is, does this opinion of the Itter make its way into the Shulchan Aruch at all? So the Shulchan Aruch begins by saying, "Isho madliko nir Chanako sha'afi." Where'd that go? Sha'afi chayoves bo. So a woman needs to light the menorah because she's obligated to do so. She's obligated to do so. Now, the obvious question that we have to address, and we will in next session in Yirtzeh Hashem in depth, is if women are obligated in menorah, why don't they light? Now, you'll tell me the famous, well-known reason of the Mishnah Brura of Ishto Kegufo. You'll say, well, your wife, Ishto Kegufo, your wife is like yourself. Your wife is like the husband. So when your husband lights, the wife feel obligation. Question. Very good. Okay, well-known idea. But the obvious question on that is, but why? In other words, we understand why by lighting for Shabbos, why by lighting for Yontif, right? All the feminists, they have nothing to complain about Shabbos and Yontif because they're lighting. On the contrary, the chauvinists should say what's going on. But over there, we have answers, and it's equally accepted. Everyone agrees. The women run the show over there. They light for Ner Shabbos. They light for Ner Yontif. Now, the question where sometimes there's a major misunderstanding and there's newfangled ideas contrary to what the Torah HaKadosh, what Hashem wants of us, women say, I gotta light the menorah. I gotta light it. I got it. We see over here the Gemara, the Torah, they all know this. But the Mishnah Berurah says, wait, not so fast. Mishnah Berurah says that no. Ishto Kegufo, Mishnah Berurah invokes, and we're going to see over here, he's going to say, Noshim Tefelos, coming from Chuvas, from a Dvar Shmuel, if I'm not mistaken. Women are secondary when it comes to menorah. We're going to see in the Mishnah Berurah. So any woman who's half a feminist will come along and say, that's disgusting. What does this mean over here? We're secondary to fails. It's like, Iker Tofel. Let's say you have French fries and you're gonna dip it in ketchup. What bracha you make?
The French fry.
French fry. Yeah, I'm all right. What about the shahako on the ketchup?
Stuff.
It's Tofel. The Iker is the French fry. The ketchup is secondary. So woman's gonna say, what, I'm the ketchup? What's going on over here? Nashim Tfeilas? The secondary over here? What's going on? We have to figure out exactly what that means. Why specifically over here would they be secondary? It seems like a major part of the nace occurred through women. They were part of the decree equally. We have to understand this exactly, and we have to answer up for these people who are coming with claims. Number one. Number two, we have to figure out, are they doing something wrong by lighting? Why would they be doing something wrong? Very simple. Let's say, for example, we have to set up an Erev Tavshilin. Talk about Erev Tavshilin for a minute, right? You have Shabbos and Yontif, they're colliding. So now what you have to do is you have to say, wait a second, I'm gonna need to start cooking. Right? I'm gonna need to start cooking. You can't just cook. It's a free for all whenever you want. You gotta set the Erev Tavshilin up before Yontif Shabbos situation over there, right? So that you could cook for and prepare, so to say, for the Shabbos, right? So, question is, let's say your wife says, no, I don't want you to do the Erev Tavshilin. I want to do my own Erev Tavshilin. The husband says, but I insist on, or another case, B'dikas chametz, you're checking house for chametz, right? One person makes the bracha. Right? Woman says, no, I want to make the bracha. So now, are you allowed to make two brachas in the same mitzvah that you're doing? Because the question is, the obvious answer is no. It's going to be a bracha she'eina tzricha, unnecessary additional bracha. So the question is, would that apply here? Why or why not?
Wait, can you make two brachas in one house?
You're not supposed to. It would be a bracha she'eina tzricha, as we just said 22 seconds ago.
No, but what meaning? How does it determine if you're let's say actually no, it's renting. If you have like two rooms, you can't. We learned this, didn't we?
What are you asking for, Badika?
For Badika, I guess, yeah.
No, you're not supposed to. Mezuzah. Say one bracha covers the whole house. It's supposed to be saying multiple brachas. So the question then arises as to why specifically by Hanukkah would the Mishnah Berurah say Ishto Kegufa? That the men should specifically light and not the women. Why wouldn't the women be lighting? Furthermore, we have to figure out, let's say someone has a girl. She's definitely a Gila Chinuch, she's over Bas Mitzvah. Let's just say, for argument's sake, she's 16 in high school.
Okay.
Let's talk about that case, yeah? So, should she not be lighting? Should she be lighting? Is she covered by the husband? Talking about Ashkenaz. I don't care about Sephardim right now. I'm not Sephardi. I've never been Sephardi. I never will be Sephardi.
Is there an idea
Yeah,
of
but
noticing any of the more menorahs there are in the house?
Oh, we have to discuss that. We have to discuss. We have to figure out what's going on. We can't just be like other people and just say, oh, the Mishnah Berurah said, Ish Kikagufo, all right, I'm lighting, I'm moving on. I don't really properly understand it. Nashin Tfeilis Bo, the thing seems like it's anti-women. No. We have to answer up and explain this halacha properly so that people don't have claims. And they don't start attacking and saying, wait a second, the Torah, Hashem just cares about men, not women. First of all, the obvious claim, if you want to be a chauvinist, you say, wait a second, you lied every single week, Shabbos, I don't complain once. I don't complain once. But that's not enough for them. They want to like Hanukkah also. They want to like, so we have to figure out what is going on. That's what we're going to be doing next session. Just wanted to give a rant about that to hype it up over here and to get everyone thinking about what's going on because this is a cryptic idea. By the way, you should know this question. I have around 1 hour's worth of material straight talking fast to unleash on this topic. Maybe we'll
Right.
be lucky if we can get it in the 40-minute session. We'll be lucky. Yeah, there's a lot going on over here. You have to figure out exactly what's going on. The Mogan Avram says something very unique. Isha madlekes the Mogan Avram perush ba'ad kol b'nei habayis. Not only could a woman light the menorah, but she could light, and everyone in the house fulfills their obligation with the woman. Now, we obviously have to categorize what is this referring to? A woman lights, and then everyone fulfills their obligation with the woman. We're going to see, as we already discussed, Isha Kigufa and Ashton Tfeilasot, the husband lights. Woman, this happened. Very simple. You have the quintessential Zvulun, and he's on a business trip. He's not home. We have to also figure out in Lumdus the mitzvah of menorah, choivas hadar or choivas haguf. Or is it both? Did we touch upon this? I think we already touched upon this.
Didn't we touch upon it on Shabbos?
Yeah, we touched upon it. Oh yeah, we touched upon it on Shabbos. Yeah, in Hilchos Shabbos we touched upon it. We have to figure out what exactly is the mitzvah menorah. Is it akin? Is it daima to mezuzah? Mezuzah, as the name of one of the Svarim on Hilchos Mezuzah, choivas hadar. It's an obligation for the dweller, the person who lives there, to do it. Is that the mitzvah menorah also? For the person who lives there? Well, if it is, that makes sense why the woman will have to light when the husband is in Timbuk 3. We understand that. And we also have to don the shaila. If you have a woman, we have a woman over here, and we have a son, and the son is 15, 16, 17, 18. Father's away in Timbuk 3 on business. He's making a couple $100,000.
Be 13.
He's having a great time on this business trip. He's eating, corn out of a can. He doesn't have kosher food there. That's what he's eating for a week. But he's making 100,000. So what does he get? He's on a business trip, yeah. So now he's eating beans out of a can over there. So now, what do we care? So the question is, who lights? The son who's 18, or the wife who's 42? So today we've got a lot of questions. Now we need to figure out the answers. The Magen Avram over here says we have to figure out what is the Magen Avram referring to. Perush ba'ad kol b'nei habayis. She lights for everyone in the house. What does that mean? Is that talking about she's got kids under the age of 6? She's running the show? What if they're older? We have to figure out exactly what is it talking about. Magen Avram's a little vague on these 4 words. What about blind people? Are blind people obligated in menorah? And if they are, would they light themselves? Is there a difference if they're at their house, not at their house, married, unmarried? You got to figure this out. Also, we have to categorize what is halachically considered legally blind. I know for personal experience that you don't need to be fully blind to get handicap parking. You can always ask yourself, why would someone blind need handicap parking if they can't drive anyways? It's a good question. I'll tell you the answer. Because the person who's blind is probably married, their spouse could drive, and now instead of that guy the other day who I saw parking in the handicap spot, I said, "What are you doing? You don't have handicap sticker." You said, "Mind your own business." What do you mean, mind your own business, you sicko? The guy's crippled, could barely walk 10 feet. You're healthy. You're parking your Mercedes over there in your thing. You could probably walk 15 more feet. What's wrong with you? People are sick. You have to have some honor and respect for people who have illnesses. Ridiculous. He said, "What are you, police?" I said, "No. Do you want me to call the police, though? I could. I could accommodate." No, but I was thinking that. I could accommodate that if you want. People have no shame, no respect. Ridiculous. Anyways, if you're blind, that doesn't mean your wife is blind. That doesn't mean your husband's blind. So now they're parking closer so that you could actually walk and not get run over by a car because you're blind going through a parking lot. Very simple. or other people who are legitimately handicapped. They can't walk, etc. So, in order to be legally blind, you're still able to see. There's certain degrees of how bad your vision is that you can't. So, when we say blind, we're talking about it seems like in halacha you are totally blind. So the question is, what does he do with lighting? First of all, you have to say, wait a second. If a guy is totally blind, how could he even see to light? Very simple. How could he do anything else? Or she? They know, they feel, they know exactly what everything is. They have in their mind the picture. Or maybe, let's see, they can see very, very little. Maybe they're still halachically considered the blind. The Magen Avram regarding this topic says, Sumo im yochel lehishtatet bepriti. If a summa is able to, someone blind is able to contribute financially a little bit, mutav, to the expenses for the menorah and the oil, mutav, that's good. He won't light, he contributes, they're all one happy family, he fulfills the obligation with someone else lighting. Says the Magen Avraham in the continuation, Vim yesh lo isha, let's say he's married. Ishto madlekes alov. Oh, so now we know why this halacha is over here. His wife lights for him. So you clearly see that a wife can light and fulfill the obligation of someone else, even a male, over the age of bar mitzvah. The question that we have to address is, should she? Should she do so? We see in the case of a blind person in particular, she should light. There's no other way. There's only way to do it. Let's say he doesn't have a wife, but he's got a house. He has an apartment, whatever it is. Madlik al yedei siyui. So what he does is that he lights. How does he light? He gets assisted. He gets assisted.
No matter if the assistant is a Jew or a non-Jew.
No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Shelacher. Anyone else could assist him. Helps with the hand. We're gonna have to see. Let's say someone who isn't Jewish lights the menorah as a shliach, messenger.
Does that work?
Does that work? We're gonna have to tackle that also. Desumo chaye b'chol mitzvahs. Says the Magen Avram, someone blind is obligated in all mitzvahs. The obvious question we have to address, wait a second. So the deaf person's chopped liver? The summa, the guy who's blind, chaye b'chol mitzvahs, obligated in all mitzvahs. But the one who's deaf isn't allowed to light the menorah? What on earth would be the difference between the two? If anything, I would say someone who's deaf is already on a higher level than someone who's blind. After all, we know that the Gemara says that there are a few people who are considered like the dead, and one of them is someone who's blind. Suma and Ani, someone who's poor, someone who's, and there's others, Messiah, I think maybe it says someone who doesn't have children, all the. So the question is, why would a blind person be obligated and a deaf person would be totally exempt? Furthermore, we have to address what's the difference between this and Havdalah. By Havdalah, it says that a blind person is exempt from Havdalah. Right. You just told me he's obligated. Why then is a blind person exempt in Havdalah? A very simple answer, says the Magen Avraham. V'loi dami l'ner Havdalah de Potter, the Hasim beina sheyusa lawyer. When it comes to Havdalah, you need to get pleasure from the light. As we learned in Hilchos Havdalah, when a person says the bracha, here's the bracha, he's got to get pleasure. He has to be able to distinguish. That's why accustomed to look at your fingernails as we look to differentiate between two different coins. You have to get pleasure from it. Enjoy that fire. Conversely, over here, where you're publicizing the miracle for others, therefore explains the Rashal they would in fact be obligated. In other words, we're going to see more and we're going to learn more about blind people. But this idea of a blind person is that Hanukkah is about publicizing the miracle. Pursue Menisa. When someone who's blind lights the menorah, check plus. He has positively caused a pursue Menisa, publicizing the miracle, because now other people see the menorah. Conversely, unlike Havdalah, he didn't benefit, so then he didn't benefit. It's no good. The Shulchan Aruch continues. And the Shulchan Aruch says over here, As we saw in the tour. Someone who is deaf, mentally challenged, a minor, lit the menorah, didn't do anything. Even though someone who is older picked up the menorah and placed it down. No. We don't hold hanacha mitzvah. If we would have held like the Gemara we learned 9 days ago, hanacha mitzvah, placing is a mitzvah, it would all be good. We hold the lakos, the mitzvah lighting is a mitzvah, so therefore it wouldn't be good. V'yeshmi says the Shulchan Aruch. Shoimer, some say, bekatan shegila chinuch bata. A katan who reaches the age of education, it's permissible for that individual to do what?
Like,
To lie. Who is this opinion? This Yeshmi Shoimer? As we saw already in the Beis Yosef and the Ber Hagolah and Osches quotes, it's the Ram B'Shem, the Baal Itter. So in the Beis Yosef, this is what the Itter says. This opinion of the Itter, quoted by the Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Kaira himself, writes it in the Shulchan Aruch. Some say that it's permissible. What did we learn yesterday's session from the Kaf HaChaim, the Aruch HaShulchan, and others about Yesh B'Shomer when the Shulchan Aruch says it?
that's really the opinion.
Yeah, doesn't have to mean that someone argues. Just means that just one person said it. So if a minor reached the age of education, 6, 7, 8, whatever the exact age is,
107
obligated to do it because of chinuch, educational purposes. Viladiton. David was bothered by a difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim at the beginning of today's session. So now we're going to end today's session with this. L'kavod David hamelech alav hashalom uledidon dekol echem b'nei habayis madlik b'fnei atzmo. And according to us, Ashkenazim, says the Rama, which we have to learn about, and we already discussed original according to Rabbi Bandagam in the beginning of Siman Tafrei Shayin Al, as well as the Ian section on Gemara over there, we discussed in depth. And according to us, that each and every one of us, we lied in the house. We have to figure out what that means, each and every one, in terms of from women also. And girls, we have to tackle that in depth. Properly understand what's going on over here. Since everyone lies individually. Says the Ramah that a minor who reached the age of education needs to light also. In other words, I'm strengthening, I'm emphasizing, I'm fortifying and tweaking for the better for the Ashkenaz opinion. The what the Shulchan Aruch said, quoting the Itter, that a katan shegila chinuch has to light. Minor who reached the age of education. So we definitely have what to chew on over here. Let's just peek at the Machasis shekel. Peek. We done the Hagim Shkol Lechem Rebbe as Ma'is Malvi Shum Bahajim in Bahajim Kimosh Kotzer Ramosim Tafish Shmekli Kil Lami Nishma. Because why wouldn't a woman light according to us that everyone lights? Who besefer al the Arabis and Tafar Yishayin Tatus to Isho Kigufo. Bechin Mash B'Shuvas Mashal. There it is. Says the Eli Araba back over in Siman Tafar Yishayin Aleph. Your wife is like yourself. When you light, it's as if your wife lit. Question is, but why now is the husband suddenly taking the mantle of lighting upon himself the entire year? We don't light anything. We don't light Shabbos. We don't light Yom Tov. Now suddenly we take the mantle. Transfer it over. Each token go for a one-way street. The husband lights. Why? Ask your average person this question. They'll say, I have absolutely no idea. That's why we're here. We got to learn about it. We got to figure out why. We got to research this. R&D, deep dive. A ger, says the Eshel of Ram, someone who converts could say Lavoy Seina. We have to figure out exactly why. To our forefathers. What do you mean? You're a convert, not your forefather. We have to figure that out. The Pri Megadim in the Mishbetzot Zahav says that a woman technically can fulfill obligation with a man, like we saw in the blind person, and then says a male could fulfill the obligation of a female if she's standing there. Not another way. Why? Any quintessential shlichus. You appoint someone as a master, you give someone a kedushin so that she should betroth your wife and get engaged. You don't need to be there. You have a messenger doing it. You send someone to send stuff. Why specifically you have to be there? What's going on over here? Oh, and then the Nishmas Ozov points out something that we learned around 7 months ago when we were learning Hilchos Purim 6 months ago. By the way, you should know, some say that a woman cannot lay in the beginning for a man. It's not out of the Tzibur. We learned many reasons over there. Let's do with Purim. No, there's nothing to do with no cover Tzibur over here. Delighting in your private residence. Saying a side point, that's different. The other reasons over there also. So, in other words, to summarize today, we got some background information. We answered a few questions, but at the end of the day, we have around a dozen questions which are totally unanswered. Think about it over the weekend. Mirz Hashem, we will resume Monday. Everyone should have a wonderful Shabbos. Welcome to you.
Good Shabbos.
Yeah.
Oh, Hanukkah, Monday, Hanukkah. It
Hanukkah.
shouldn't be later.
Starting Sunday night, right?
Starting Sunday night. That's right.
Got it happen early.
Monday morning. We
That's
should,
right.
no halos. I know, no more stuff.
We
No more
will
stuff.
be starting Chabura 9:15.
All right,
We'll
very
cover
good.
Shabbos. We'll cover Hanukkah. We'll start a minute later for Hallel 9:16.
Okay, starting, I'm not sure when.